Hello everybody. Today we are going to talk about Module 2, Tea Cultures Around the World. Last time, in Module 1, we discovered more about origin and history about tea culture. And then at that time, we learned that Shen Nong, he was an emperor and also a herbalist. He discovered the function of tea as medicine in 4,700 years ago. And afterwards, tea spread out to a lot of parts of the world, including like Europe or Asia, Middle East, etc. So today we are going to explore more about tea cultures around the world. So next one, I want to show you the picture. As you can see, can you recognize those tea cultures? Think about that. Maybe you know one or two of them, but do you know everyone? So the first one on the left-hand side, upper part, as you know, it's an English tea culture. Afternoon tea, everybody knows it. And then in the lower part, left side, it's, do you know that? It's mate. Mate is really popular in South America. So a lot of people drink mate almost every day. So later we will explore more. And then at the right-hand side, upper part, do you know what it is? It's Turkish tea culture because they use tulip shape of glass, glass instead of mug or cup. So that is Turkish. And then the last one in the lower part, that is Indian tea culture. Masala cha. So we also call that milk tea, Indian milk tea. So later we will explore more about those tea cultures. Okay, so here is the outline for this module. So first one, we will talk about British tea culture. British tea culture is really famous. So of course, we will learn more today. And then the second one is Japanese tea culture. As we know, Japanese has a very long history and culture and traditions about tea. So they see tea as kind of ritual or ceremony. So later we will explore more too. And then Turkish, as you know, Turkish people also drink coffee, right? But maybe you feel surprised that they drink tea a lot. They drink black tea mainly. So they develop their own black tea culture. Okay, and then the next one is yerba mate. Yerba mate is one kind of plant. It doesn't belong to Camellia sinensis. So it's not for tea appreciation. It's basically a drink or beverage, but it's really popular in people's daily life in countries such as Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, okay? So it's really popular. And then the next one is India, Indian tea culture. As I showed you earlier, they use spices and then cook with black tea and put some milk inside and some sugar. And then they become, their national drink, masala cha. And the last one I want to talk about is Russian tea culture. Maybe you feel surprised. Yes, Russia got its own tea culture. And they have a very unique way to make tea or drink tea. So they use one kind of very unique utensil. They call that samovar, and cook tea and share with their friends or family members. So that's about the tea cultures we will explore today. Okay, the first one, British tea culture. When we say British tea culture, we know, British people love drinking tea. So tea is one kind of national drink, and it is also one of the most important icons in the UK. So when people say, would you like to have a cuppa? Cuppa, C-U-P-P-A, actually means a cup of tea. So tea is a very important part in their daily life. So tea culture actually developed, in the 17th century. And then when they imported tea from China, and later on become daily drink in the modern life. But at that time, tea was really precious. Tea actually is kind of valuable, very valuable thing at that time. So it's really popular among family royal court. So do you know why British people are so obsessed about tea? As according to a statistic, they drink almost 165 million cups a day. It's a lot, isn't it? So like my British mom, my English mom, when I visited her, she drank a lot of tea. Of course, mainly black tea, straight from morning till late evening. So as I saw, she probably drank like 6 or 7 cups a day. So it's a lot. So 165 million cups a day, just a day. It's a lot of drinking tea. And then I want to talk about history, about British tea culture. As I mentioned earlier, British tea actually developed from royal family. So a lady, very important lady called Catherine Braganza, and she was, a wife of a king. So she introduced tea to her friends, and she organized a tea party, inviting a lot of royal court members to join her. So tea became a very posh, luxurious gathering at that time. And then through the expansion of tea, one very important role is British East India Company. They imported a lot of black tea from India and then Sri Lanka. So at that time, so this is a very important supply for tea, especially for those royal court members. And then later on, tea became very prevalent to people's daily life. In the UK, they even have a tea day, National Tea Day, April, this time, April 21st, actually just a couple days ago. So that is the National Tea Day. People celebrate tea drinking traditions and history. And now I want to talk about afternoon tea. Afternoon tea, also called low tea, is one kind of, afternoon snack served with scones or pastry or sandwiches. Some people even have ice cream. But for me, I don't like having ice cream for my afternoon tea. And one thing I like most, and I also missed most, is a scone. When I lived in England, we had a lot of afternoon tea, but not like a posh or proper afternoon tea. But it's a very important part of life for a lot of people. And tea break. Speaking of tea time, tea break also very common among working class and also like in a society. So if you go to supermarkets, for example, like 4 p.m., you will see a lot of people queuing for checking out because people, cashiers taking turn having tea break. So at that time, maybe originally they have 4 lines for checking out, but during tea break, only about like 2 or 3. So people taking turns for taking a break time and then having tea, try to relax. So basically, low tea is around like 3 to 5 p.m. Some people have low tea a little bit later, like 4 to 5-ish. So for me, normally I will have afternoon tea around like 3:30 or 4. Okay, so low tea is very common. As you can see in the picture, those it's typical, but traditionally they have 3 layers, 3 tiers of tea tray instead of 2. But this one, I took the picture when I visited the city I lived before, Leicester, a couple years ago. We went to Mrs. Bridge. It's a very famous local tea shop, tea restaurant, okay, having around like more than 100 years of a history. So they serve tea, afternoon tea like that, 2 layers. So you can see like scone and then biscuit, pastry, or in the bottom layer, you see sandwiches. So for that, you guess, you start to have afternoon tea bottom up or top down? So in other words, do you have sandwiches first or do you have pastries or cake first? So traditionally, people will have sandwiches first. So savory foods and then pastry or biscuits later on with black tea. So normally they will put milk inside. But if you want, you can put some sugar, maybe a little bit. It's optional. So for me, I don't put sugar in my tea, but I definitely put some milk. And then high tea. So we talked about low tea, and now we talk about high tea. High tea is an evening meal, especially popular during Industrial Revolution for working class. At that time, people will have high tea sitting on high table, having their meal somewhere between like 5 to 7 p.m. And then, different from low tea, it's a proper meal, okay? So they will have, vegetable, meat, or some kind of soup, also soup or bread to go with tea. So it's you can say a proper meal at that time. And nowadays, people still, do it. Like when I first lived in England, one day my friend, David, called me and said, Yanji, would you like to come over for tea? At the time, I was so surprised. So for me, tea was kind of drink, but he said, would you like to come over for tea? Only one word. And later on, I came to realize that tea means light meal, evening meal. So next time, if he invited us again, say, would you like to come over for tea? Of course, I would say, sure. What time should I be there? So tea in British tea culture refers to evening meal. And low tea refers to afternoon tea. It's kind of snack between lunch and also dinner to help you recharge some energy. Now I want to show you the comparison between low tea and high tea. As you can see in the picture, afternoon tea, they sit on lower table, and then higher tea is an evening meal. And origin, we already talked about. Time, do you still remember what time do they have afternoon tea? 3 to 5. And for high tea, they will have it somewhere between like 5 to 7. So it's more like a supper or evening meal. And then food. So for low tea, it's more like a snacks, okay, and some delicacy. So cakes, sandwiches, scones, or some scones with jam. And for high tea, you will have bread, meat, and then vegetable, etc. And setting for low tea is more like elegant. In the past, it was for upper class people. As I mentioned earlier, it started from the royal court. So it's more like a posh. But nowadays, I don't want to get you wrong. Nowadays, it's really common to have afternoon tea. Maybe they don't have such a posh, setting with 3 layers food. They would just have kind of tea and then tea biscuits and just having a break, tea break. So it is very common and popular. So for a high tea, strong black tea with served in a pot, and then it is more for working class. But nowadays, as I mentioned earlier, people still have it. And then a tier, so for afternoon tea, maybe you dress up a little bit, but for daily life, you just dress like common, just daily life. And for high tea, there is such a dress code. You just dress normal or casual. So those are the comparisons about afternoon tea and then high tea.